Hello guys, welcome to the Costa Blanca this evening. This is your time. It's much later, but here we're looking at 6 p.m. and the donkeys are having their supper. They've just started their supper. So I know that you always start with a prayer. So we're going to, because the donkeys are eating, we're going to start with the grace. The eyes of all look to you in hope, O Lord, and you give them their food in due season. You open wide your hand and fill all things living with your bounteous gift. The Lord is just in all his ways and faithful in all his dealings. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Amen. So, good to see you. Well, I can't see you, but you can see me. When I first read Roberto de Mattei's expose of Vigano, of Archbishop Vigano, I first thought that Pietro Siffi, the blogger Baronius, reminded me of a character in the Umberto Eco world of conspiracy and minor characters who thought they were somebody. As a student of linguistics and semiotics in the 1970s, late 1970s, early 1980s at the University of London, Umberto Eco was one of our heroes, along with, because I was studying linguistics and semiotics, and Umberto Eco, the Italian professor of semiotics and a real master intellectual, alongside some of the other sort of French intellectuals in Paris who were producing work of a similar sort in linguistics and semiotics. We call it semiology in English, semiotics in USA, and I had a bit of fun sort of playing around with that in the story. We were amazed when this dry academic intellectual Umberto Eco produced an amazing novel later on, a few years later, The Name of the Rose. And The Name of the Rose was really based in his linguistics semiotics work, and also was a fantastic exposition of the 14th century warfare that was taking place. It was a culture war between the Franciscans and the Dominicans, between Rome and the Pope in Avignon, and it was all about power and the way in which the church was distorting the gospel in terms of the power of the clergy, the power of the individual clergy, and also the groups of clergy in religious orders and so on. So you have the warfare between the Franciscans and the Dominicans. So that's The Name of the Rose. I won't spend too much time on that, but I recommend it to anybody. I once talked to a Dominican in Oxford when I was walking to Santiago from Worcester. I stopped in Oxford and talked to a Dominican there to get a stamp in my pilgrim passport, and we discussed The Name of the Rose at great length, and he said it's the best exposition of the 14th century culture wars that you could ever possibly read. Foucault's pendulum is the real reference, and I want to move on to that because that's the reference of the story that I wrote for Where Peter Is. And when I read Professor Roberto de Mattei's expose of Vigano's ghostwriter Pietro Siffi, I thought immediately of this fantastic Umberto Eco conspiracy novel, Foucault's Pendulum, in which every possible conspiracy is drawn in to the one story. And it's a bit like the Illuminatus trilogy of the 1970s, in which every possible conspiracy is all welded into one. But that was before the computer age. And one of the things that Umberto Eco gives us is the early days of the computer. He's talking about a glorified word processor and the way in which primitive computers were able to go through tons and tons of information. And if you fed in lots of rubbish, you'd get lots of rubbish out. And I can't remember what the phrase is that goes with that, but it's something like rubbish in, rubbish out. But anyway, and Umberto Eco is one of the first to actually explore the computer in that sort of literary conspiracy sort of form. And so I wrote my parody satire piece about Roberto de Mattei's expose of Vigano's ghostwriter Pietro Siffi as a kind of homage to Umberto Eco, which was great fun. I enjoyed writing it. I'm normally sort of writing straight stuff for Where Peter Is with my normal Monday series on the Camino de Santiago, the postcards from the Camino. But I wanted to have fun with this because I've just got fed up with Vigano, to be honest, and I couldn't see any way of taking this seriously, particularly as Roberto de Mattei was one of the supporters of Vigano, and as everybody's abandoning the ship, he's just joining others abandoning the ship and trying to sort of save his face. That's my view anyway. So thanks to everybody for your wonderful response to the parody satire that I wrote, including Austin Ivory, who was very kind in his comments, and Jeannie Gaffigan, of course, who also wrote to Mike saying that she liked it. So if my spiritual director can get together with her agent, we might get a comedy script together somehow. I wanted to just say one last thing on this, which might have gone amiss. It might have got missed in the fun we've all had with Roberto de Mattei and Vigano and so on, and my parody using Umberto Eco and Foucault's pendulum. There's one thing that I think is really important that needs to be said. I didn't say anything about it in the article. It wasn't really the right place. But if there's going to be a discussion on the critical Catholic, Ruby, you're pushing me out the way. Lovely donk. Right. So if there's going to be something said tonight in discussion on the critical Catholic about Umberto Eco, one thing should not be missed about this really very important intellectual, in that he wrote in the New York Review of Books. I haven't got the date for you, but I think it's sometime in the 1990s. He wrote a fantastic essay called Fascism. Fascism. Fascism, and the phrase means eternal fascism, fascism, and it's the way in which, in this essay in the New York Review of Books, he wrote that fascism changes from one generation to another, and when sometimes some of us have called, for example, the Trump project or the Brexit project, or what's happening in Hungary, what's happening in Poland. When we've referred to this as fascism, people said, oh, no, they're not marching around in uniforms. What are you talking about? It's not fascism. But Umberto Eco, in Fascism, talks about the way in which fascism changes from one generation to another. And it's like that crazy character, the changeling, who from one time to another, the playful character of the fool will change and become something else from one generation to another. And fascism does the same. It plays the fool, but it plays the fool in a very serious way, in a deadly way. And Fascism, the essay by Umberto Eco, is worth reading. It's a sound essay. It's often ignored by people who are trying to struggle to define fascism, and they don't realise that someone's already done it in a marvellous way, because he grew up with it in Italy, in northern Italy, in the 1940s, and he writes about it with authority, clarity, and we should refer to Umberto Eco's essay on fascism when we are trying to grapple with this this strange time that we live in which democracy is under threat, and we can't actually figure out what are the forces involved. So I'll leave you with that thought. So from here in the Costa Blanca, where it's quite warm, to you at 2 o'clock in the morning it will be when you have your discussion, 2 o'clock in the morning our time. So I'll hand over to you. And a beautiful evening here. And say goodbye, Tana. She doesn't want to say goodbye. She's eating. Okay, bye for now. God bless.